at 8:17 p.m. at the Pierce Resort on Miami Beach. You kissed her right in front of me? Tessa choked out, one hand over her nearly 7-month pregnant belly. Damon snapped, "How long have you been meeting Callum Ashford behind my back?" Tessa removed her ring and placed it in his hand. "You don't get to betray me and then blame me for it." Then Callum stepped forward. "Tessa, do you need a ride?" Why did Damon's billionaire rival appear at that exact moment? Stay to the end and subscribe to uncover the truth. At 7:30 on a humid Miami morning, Tessa Pierce stood in the unfinished lobby of the newest Pierce Hospitality Resort with one hand pressed beneath her stomach and the other holding a tablet full of last-minute problems. The marble floor had been polished twice. The brass lights were finally working. Someone had replaced the dead palms near the entrance. Outside, workers were still removing protective plastic from the glass doors before the resort's grand opening the following night. Everything looked expensive, almost perfect. Tessa knew better. "Suite 1218 still has a plumbing issue," she told the operations manager beside her. "Don't put a guest in there just because reservations wants the room back. We have a full house tomorrow. Then we have a full house minus one room." The manager hesitated. Tessa looked at him. "A bad review is inconvenient. A guest waking up to water coming through the ceiling is a failure. Fix the problem first." He nodded and walked away. Tessa lowered the tablet. Grace, or whatever name they eventually chose if Damon changed his mind again, gave a small kick beneath her ribs. "Yeah, I know," Tessa whispered. "I should be sitting down. You should be at home." Tessa turned. Damon Pierce was crossing the lobby toward her, jacket over one shoulder, phone in his hand. At 36, Damon had perfected the appearance of someone who had never entered a room without already knowing he belonged there. Dark hair, expensive watch, crisp white shirt with the top button open. He carried confidence so naturally that people often mistook it for certainty. Tessa once had too, now she could see the difference. Certainty listened to evidence. Confidence sometimes just raised its voice. Damon stopped in front of her and glanced at the tablet. "You've been here since 7? 7:15. That's supposed to make me feel better? It should." "I gave myself 15 extra minutes of sleep." He almost smiled. For half a second, Tessa saw the man she had married. Then his phone vibrated. He looked down. The smile disappeared. "Board call moved to 9. I thought it was tomorrow, so did I." "About Atlanta?" Damon slipped the phone into his pocket. "About everything." Tessa knew what that meant. Atlanta, Denver, Austin. 3 new properties Damon wanted to begin developing before the Miami resort had even completed its first month. Pierce Hospitality had grown fast over the past 6 years, faster than either of them expected. They had started with one struggling boutique hotel Damon bought from an uncle who wanted out of the business. Tessa had helped rebuild the guest experience, renegotiate vendors, redesign the loyalty program, and train the early management teams. Damon handled investors. Tessa handled everything that had to work after the money arrived. They had been good together. Very good. Somewhere between their 4th property and the magazine profiles calling Damon one of hospitality's fastest-rising entrepreneurs, the company stopped feeling like something they had built and started feeling like something Damon had conquered. Now every warning sounded to him like doubt. Tessa handed him the tablet. Before the board call, "Look at the revised projections Evans sent." Damon did not take it. "I already saw them." "Then you saw the cash position if Miami can take 6 months instead of 3 to stabilize." "It won't. You don't know that." "I know this market." Knowing the market doesn't mean controlling it. His expression changed. There it was. That tiny withdrawal she had learned to recognize. Not anger yet. Resistance. Tessa lowered her voice. "Damon, I'm not trying to stop you from growing. You keep saying that while telling me not to grow. I'm telling you not to open 3 construction projects at once. We have the opportunity now. We'll still have opportunity 6 months from now. You don't know that. Neither do you." He looked past her toward the lobby doors. Workers moved furniture across the terrace outside. Tessa waited. She hated what happened next in conversations like this. Damon did not argue with the numbers. He argued with the fact that she had questioned him. "You've become incredibly cautious." "I'm pregnant, not frightened." "I didn't say frightened. You were about to." Damon rubbed the back of his neck. "You know what I mean." "I do. That's why I'm worried." His eyes came back to hers. "Tessa, I've taken risks since the day we started this company, and I've supported most of them." "Most?" "Yes, most. Being married to you doesn't require me to think every idea you have is brilliant." A passing employee slowed down, then wisely kept walking. Damon noticed. His voice dropped. "Can we not do this here?" Tessa stared at him. "You brought it up here. I came here to tell my pregnant wife to go home." And your pregnant wife is telling you that opening 3 more hotels before this one proves itself is dangerous. His jaw hardened. To the business? To everyone. That sounds dramatic. It sounds dramatic because you're thinking about the headline. I'm thinking about the people under it. Damon's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means if Atlanta goes over budget, and Denver gets delayed, and Miami has a slower first quarter, you're not the only person who loses sleep.
Managers lose bonuses, staff lose hours, vendors wait for checks.
Growth isn't only a number on a presentation. Damon looked away again. Tessa knew she had reached him. She also knew he hated being reached that way. Facts made him feel challenged now, especially when they came from her. A few years earlier, he had thanked her for being the one person who could tell him when he was wrong. Lately, every disagreement turned into a test of loyalty. Damon finally said, Evan is conservative. Evan is your financial advisor. He's paid to worry. Yes. Damon looked at her. That doesn't make him right. No. It means his concern deserves an answer. He exhaled. I'm late. You still have 40 minutes. For Miami traffic, that's late. You're calling from upstairs. Then I'm emotionally late. That got a small laugh from her. Damon smiled too. For a moment, the tension softened. He stepped closer and rested his palm gently on the side of her stomach. The baby moved. His face changed immediately. There was wonder there, still. She's active. She likes arguments. Definitely yours. Tessa covered his hand with hers. Damon. He looked at her. I'm not against you. I know. Do you? His smile faded. She wished he would answer quickly. He didn't. Finally, he kissed her forehead. I have to take the call. Then he walked toward the elevators. Tessa watched him go. She wanted to believe the conversation had ended well. Instead, she found herself wondering when reassurance had become something she had to keep proving. Later that morning, Damon sat at the head of a conference table on the 22nd floor, with the Miami coastline spread across the windows behind him. 8 executives appeared on the video wall. Evan Brooks was one of them. So was Sloane Mercer. Sloane sat 2 chairs down from Damon in the room, though she could easily have joined remotely. She usually found a reason to be nearby lately, Damon had noticed. He had also stopped pretending he didn't like it. Evan was speaking. If we delay Denver by 1 quarter, our leverage stays within the range we discussed. If we move all 3 projects forward now, the margin gets thin. Damon leaned back. We're not operating in fear. Evan kept his tone neutral. This isn't fear. It's sequencing. Competitors aren't sequencing. Competitors also have different balance sheets. Sloane looked at Damon and gave the smallest shake of her head, as if Evan were missing something obvious. Damon noticed that too. What happens if we wait 6 months? Damon asked. Evan answered, nothing catastrophic. That wasn't the question. We may pay more for land. Exactly. And we may know more about Miami's actual performance. Damon tapped a finger against the table. The market rewards confidence. Evan said, markets also punish people who confuse confidence with timing. Silence filled the room. Damon's expression cooled. Sloane stepped in smoothly. What Evan means is that the financial side has to stay conservative. From a brand position, though, momentum matters. Damon looked toward her. She continued. Miami is generating attention before we've even opened. If we announce Atlanta while press coverage is still hot, Pierce Hospitality looks like the company setting the pace. Damon nodded. That's what I've been saying. Evan replied. Brand momentum doesn't change debt service. Sloane smiled politely. No, but demand changes revenue. Tessa would have challenged that. She would have asked for the assumptions behind the demand projection. She would have made him uncomfortable. Sloane made him feel understood. That difference had started to matter more than Damon wanted to admit. The board call ended without a decision. Damon remained at the table after everyone else disconnected. Sloane closed her laptop. You okay? Fine, you're angry. Evan likes hearing himself predict disaster. He likes being careful. Same thing lately. Sloane stood. You know what your problem is? Damon looked at her. Apparently I have several. Go ahead. You keep asking people who are afraid to lose what you've already built whether you should keep building. Damon gave a humorless laugh. That sounds like something from a motivational poster. Maybe. Doesn't make it wrong. She walked toward the window. Below them, Miami Beach glittered beneath the sun. This place didn't happen because you waited until everyone was comfortable. No. It happened because you saw what other people couldn't. Damon watched her. Sloane turned back. You're allowed to trust your instincts. The words landed harder than they should have. Because lately at home, he felt like every instinct required a defense. He knew that wasn't completely fair. Tessa had been beside him before anyone cared about his instincts. She had also saved him from some terrible decisions, but memory was easier to ignore than the relief of being admired in the present. Damon looked toward the closed conference room door. Tessa thinks I'm pushing too hard. Sloane's expression stayed calm. Do you? No. Then why does her opinion bother you so much? Damon did not answer. Sloane studied him. You don't need everyone to agree with you. I know, I'm not talking about everyone. His eyes lifted. Sloane held his gaze for a beat too long. 6 weeks earlier, in a different office, the same silence had ended with Damon kissing her. He still remembered exactly how it happened. Tessa had called him reckless during an argument about Denver. He had gone back to the office angry. Sloane stayed late. She listened. She told him Tessa no longer understood what it took to lead. Damon said that wasn't fair. Sloane said maybe being fair all the time was exhausting. Then she touched his hand. Damon kissed her. He pulled away almost immediately. What the hell am I doing? Sloane had not looked shocked. She had looked calm. Something you wanted to do. I'm married. I know. Tessa's pregnant. I know that too. He had stood up and paced to the window.
This can't happen again. Sloane had picked up her bag. Then it won't. No tears.
No demand. No accusation. That made it worse. The next morning, Damon expected guilt to hit him hard enough to change everything. Instead, Sloane treated him normally. By the end of the week, she had convinced him without ever directly saying it that the kiss had happened because something in his marriage was already broken. Damon knew better. Still, the explanation felt good. People often chose the story that made their worst decision easier to live with. Damon was no exception. Across town that afternoon, Tessa sat in a quiet corner of a restaurant inside a Brickell hotel with Callum Ashford and Evan Brooks. This was their third meeting. It would also be the last, Tessa had decided. Callum wore a charcoal suit without a tie. He was taller than Damon, broader through the shoulders, and carried himself with the relaxed patience of someone whose place in the room had been established long before he arrived. That confidence had once impressed Tessa. Now it mostly made her careful. Callum slid a printed page across the table. If Atlanta slips by 20%, you're still fine. Tessa looked down. And Denver? Denver is the problem. Evan nodded. If both move at the same time. Callum added, with Miami still ramping. Tessa rubbed her forehead.
So I'm not overreacting. No, I was hoping you would say I was.
Callum leaned back.
You didn't call me because you wanted comfort.
No, you called because... Damon stopped listening. Tessa's eyes lifted. Evan suddenly became very interested in his coffee. Tessa said, that's not entirely fair. Callum's mouth tightened. It's accurate. You haven't been inside my marriage. No, then don't talk like you have. Callum nodded once. Fair. That was something she remembered about him. Callum could be arrogant, but when he knew he had crossed a line, he did not usually waste time pretending he hadn't. Tessa looked back at the numbers. I should tell Damon I met with you. Yes. Evan said nothing. Tessa glanced at him. You can speak. I was hoping not to. Too late, Evan set down his cup. You should tell him. Tessa sighed. I know, Callum asked. Then why haven't you? She looked out toward the street. Cars crawled through afternoon traffic. Because the second I say your name, the conversation stops being about Denver. Callum stayed quiet. Tessa continued. He hears Ashford and everything becomes personal. Evan said carefully. That doesn't mean hiding it helps. I know. Callum folded his hands. If you want my advice beyond the business part, secrecy always charges interest. Tessa looked at him. That sounded painfully billionaire. It's still true. Evan laughed. Tessa almost did. Then Callum's expression softened. Tell him before someone else does. She looked back down at the page. I will. Callum did not press. That helped. What none of them noticed was a hotel guest seated near the bar lifting a phone toward the restaurant windows. The woman recognized Callum. Most people in Miami business circles did. She took one photograph. Tessa was leaning over the table. Callum was facing her. Evan sat beside Tessa, clearly visible. The photo looked ordinary. 3 people in a business meeting. The woman posted it later with a casual caption about spotting Callum Ashford in Brickell. 3 weeks before the resort opening, Sloane Mercer found it. She was sitting alone in the Pierce Hospitality Communications office when the image appeared in a social media monitoring report. She opened it. Zoomed in Tessa, Callum, and Evan. Sloane stared at the photograph for several seconds. She knew Damon hated Callum. Everyone close to him knew. It was more than rivalry. Callum represented the level Damon had not reached yet. More properties, more money, more press, more authority, and most dangerously, a history with Tessa that Damon never discussed without becoming tense. Sloane downloaded the photograph. She opened a basic editing tool. Then she cropped Evan out. The result changed everything. Now Tessa appeared to be sitting alone with Callum. Close enough to look intimate, private enough to look secret. Sloane saved the new image. She did not send it immediately. That would look eager. Instead, she waited until nearly 10 that night. Damon was still at the Miami resort. Tessa had gone home hours earlier. Sloane walked into his temporary office holding her phone. I wasn't sure whether to show you this. Damon looked up from his laptop. Show me what? Sloane hesitated just enough, then she turned the phone around. Damon stared at the photograph, his expression emptied. When was this? I don't know. Where did you get it? Someone posted it online. Damon took the phone. Tessa was leaning toward Callum. Callum's eyes were on her. No Evan, no papers clearly visible. No obvious reason for the meeting. Damon zoomed in. You knew about this? I saw it tonight. Why didn't Tessa tell me? Sloane said nothing. Damon looked at her. What? I didn't say anything. You were thinking something. Sloane lowered herself into the chair across from him. Maybe there's an explanation. The sentence sounded reasonable. The tone did not. Damon looked back at the screen. How long has this been online? A few days. A few days? Damon. She met him and didn't tell me. You don't know that. Yes, I do. She could have planned to. Damon laughed bitterly. That sounds like Tessa. Schedule the honesty for later. Sloane watched him carefully. You should talk to her. He looked at the picture again. Something old and ugly stirred beneath the anger. Callum. Of course it was Callum. Years earlier, before Damon and Tessa married, he had asked her once whether she and Callum had ever been involved. Tessa said no. She said Callum had wanted more. She hadn't. Damon believed her. Mostly. But insecurity did not need evidence to survive. It only needed a door left unlocked. Now he had a photograph. And because guilt had already been eating at him for 6 weeks, the photograph offered something dangerous. Balance. Maybe he was not the only one hiding something. Maybe the marriage had already been broken before he kissed Sloane. Maybe his betrayal was only a response to distance he had sensed without understanding. Damon knew how convenient that was. He knew the timeline did not fit. He had kissed Sloane before seeing the photograph. Still, he stared at the image until the truth became less comfortable than the excuse. Sloane stood. I'm going home. Damon barely heard her. At the doorway, she stopped. Whatever this is, don't make a decision tonight. He looked up. You think there's something between them? Sloane met his eyes. I think people usually hide what they don't want questioned. Then she left. Damon sat alone with the photograph. At home, Tessa was asleep on her side with one hand resting over the baby. Her phone sat charging beside the bed. She had spent the evening reviewing the same financial projections Damon refused to discuss. She still intended to tell him about Callum. Tomorrow, she had decided. Tomorrow, she would sit Damon down and explain everything. She would tell him about the 3 meetings, about Evan, about Atlanta, about Denver, about the fear that Pierce hospitality was growing faster than its foundation could carry. Tessa believed difficult conversations could still repair difficult marriages if both people were willing to tell the truth. What she did not know was that Damon had already chosen silence once. Now he was sitting 20 miles away, looking at a lie that felt easier than asking his wife a question. And Sloane had just learned exactly how little truth Damon needed when jealousy gave him something more comfortable to believe. By 6 the next evening, the Miami resort no longer looked unfinished. The plastic was gone from the glass doors. The lobby smelled faintly of citrus and polished wood. White orchids filled low stone planters beside the reception desk. Beyond the terrace, the infinity pool seemed to spill directly into the Atlantic. Guests arrived in waves. Investors, local politicians, travel writers, developers, hotel executives. People who had ignored Damon Pierce when he owned one struggling boutique property now crossed the lobby eager to shake his hand. Damon should have been enjoying every second. Instead, he stood near the pool with a drink he had barely touched and watched the entrance. Callum Ashford's name was on the guest list. That fact had bothered him all day. He had asked twice who invited him. The answer had been the same both times. A group of investors wanted Callum at a private dinner after the opening reception. Pierce Hospitality had not invited him directly, but Damon could hardly tell major investors whom they were allowed to bring into a resort that had not even been open 24 hours. Sloane stepped beside him. She wore a fitted champagne-colored dress and carried no purse, only her phone. She had spent the last 3 hours moving through the property as if she had been born into events like this. A quiet word to a reporter here. A correction to a seating card there. A smile to an investor who wanted to feel important. You're staring at the door, she said. Damon glanced at her. I'm watching the room. The room is behind you. I know where the room is. Sloane followed his gaze toward the entrance. Still thinking about Ashford? No. That sounded convincing. Damon finally took a drink. Why would investors invite a competitor to my opening? Because they're investors, that does answer the question. They like money more than loyalty. He gave her a look. Sloane smiled. There. That's better. What? You look like you were about to fire the ocean. Damon almost laughed. Almost. Then he saw a reporter from a national travel magazine enter with a photographer. Tonight mattered. The Miami property was supposed to prove that Pierce Hospitality had moved beyond being a promising regional chain. Damon wanted the company mentioned beside names that had taken decades to build. He had spent years getting here, years hearing no, years watching people with family money move faster, because banks returned their calls before lunch. Callum Ashford had never needed to prove he belonged. That was part of what Damon hated about him. Callum's family had money before Callum was born. Then Callum had multiplied it until people stopped describing him as an heir and started describing him as a billionaire investor. Damon told himself his resentment was about business. It wasn't entirely. Sloane looked at him again. Did Tessa say when she's coming? She had an appointment. What kind? He turned toward her. Sloane raised one hand. Sorry. None of my business. Prenatal. Everything okay? As far as I know. The answer came out colder than he intended. Sloane caught it. Have you talked to her about the picture? No. Damon, what? You've had 3 weeks. I've been busy. You've been avoiding it. He stared toward the water. Sloane lowered her voice. If you're going to accuse her of something, then accuse her. If you're not, stop punishing yourself every time her phone lights up. I'm not punishing myself. Fine. Then stop punishing everyone else. Damon looked at her sharply. She didn't back down. That was one reason he liked talking to her. Sloane knew exactly how far she could push before making him feel challenged. Tessa used to know that too. Then something changed. Or maybe Damon did. He had looked at the cropped photograph so many times that he could now picture it without opening his phone. Tessa leaning toward Callum. Callum watching her. Private table, no visible business documents, no one else in the frame. He had told himself there could be an explanation. He had never asked for one, because asking meant risking an answer. Sloane said maybe she knew he'd be here tonight. Damon looked at her. What? Nothing. No, say it. She hesitated. I said maybe Tessa knew Callum would be here. Why would she know? I don't know. Then why say it? Sloane shifted her weight. Because she met him without telling you. Now he's coming to your opening. You're acting like the possibility hasn't crossed your mind. It hadn't. That doesn't mean it's true. Damon's mouth tightened. Sloane saw she had gone far enough. She changed the subject. The Miami Herald photographer wants 5 minutes before dinner. And your speech is at 8, I know. I also moved the Atlanta question off the press list. He looked at her. Why? Because you haven't announced anything. We might tonight. Then announce it yourself. Don't let a reporter force you into it. That made sense. It usually did when Sloane said it. Thanks. She smiled. That's what I'm here for. Her hand brushed his forearm. The contact lasted less than a second. Still, Damon felt it. 6 weeks earlier, that same hand had rested over his in the office before he kissed her. They had crossed the line more than once since. Never in public. Never where anyone from the company might see. Damon kept telling himself each time would be the last. Then he would fight with Tessa, or see another message arrive on her phone, or remember the photograph. And Sloane would be there. He knew how weak that sounded. He also knew weakness often came dressed as justification. She's here, Sloane said. Damon turned. Tessa had entered through the lobby doors. For a moment, everything else disappeared. She wore a soft blue dress that fell loosely around her pregnant stomach, simple enough that she looked almost underdressed beside some of the guests. Yet Damon noticed people turned toward her anyway. They always did. Tessa did not command attention by demanding it. She made people feel seen, and they remembered. A front desk manager crossed the lobby to greet her. Tessa touched the woman's arm, asked something, then smiled at the answer. Damon watched her. He had not seen her since early that morning. They had barely spoken. She looked tired. Beautiful, too. The thought irritated him because it arrived before the anger. Sloane said quietly, "You should go say hello." Damon did not move. Tessa spotted him near the pool. Her expression softened at first. Then she noticed Sloane. The warmth faded. Damon saw it. Something in him hardened in response. He knew how irrational that was. He had betrayed her. She did not even know yet. Still, he found himself thinking about Callum, about the photograph, about the secret meetings he had imagined without proof. Tessa began walking toward him. Before she reached them, Sloane's phone vibrated. She glanced down. Her eyes moved quickly over the screen, then she looked at Damon. What? Nothing. You keep saying that tonight. She hesitated. One of the VIP coordinators says Ashford's car just pulled in. Damon looked toward the lobby doors. Tessa was still approaching. Sloane lowered her phone. Maybe she knew. Damon said nothing. I'm sorry, Sloane added. Forget I said it. Tessa was less than 20 feet away now. Damon could have walked to her. He could have kissed his wife on the cheek, asked about the appointment, asked if the baby was all right, asked why she had met Callum. Any of those choices might have changed the next hour. Instead, Damon stood still. Tessa reached them. Hi. Her eyes went to Damon first. Hi, he said. She waited. When he offered nothing else, she asked, everything okay? Why wouldn't it be? I don't know. You tell me. Sloane looked between them. I should check on press arrivals. She started to move. Damon said, stay. Tessa's eyes shifted toward him. Sloane stopped. There was no good reason for Damon to ask her to stay. That was probably why he did it. Tessa looked at Sloane, then back at her husband. How was the board call? Fine. Did Evan show the revised numbers? Yes. And we're still discussing it. Tessa nodded slowly. Okay, she waited again. Damon knew what she expected. A question about the baby, he almost asked. Then Sloane said quietly, Damon, they're waiting for you near the West Bar. In a minute. Tessa glanced at her. You seem busy. It's opening night, Sloane replied. I noticed. The words were polite. The space beneath them was not. Sloane's eyes flicked toward the entrance. Damon followed her gaze. A group of men in dark suits had entered. Callum was not among them yet, but Damon was already imagining him. Walking into the resort, looking for Tessa. Tessa smiled at someone passing behind Damon. The gesture was automatic. Damon suddenly wondered if she had smiled that way at Callum. He hated himself for thinking it. Then Sloane leaned closer. Only Damon could hear her. Why are you still protecting someone who may already have chosen another man? The sentence struck exactly where she intended. Damon looked at Tessa, his wife, nearly 7 months pregnant with his child, the woman who had slept beside him for years, the woman who had helped him build everything around them. And in that moment, instead of remembering any of it, he remembered a photograph, Callum's face, Tessa leaning toward him, the possibility that Damon had already been made a fool. Sloane started to step away. Damon caught her wrist. She turned. Tessa's brow furrowed. Damon? He should have released Sloane. He didn't. The anger had nowhere intelligent to go, so he chose the worst place possible. Damon pulled Sloane toward him and kissed her. For 1 second, Sloane froze. Then she kissed him back. The sound around the pool seemed to disappear. A server stopped halfway through setting champagne on a table. 2 investors turned. Someone near the bar whispered Damon's name. Tessa did not move. The glass in her hand remained untouched. Damon felt the weight of what he was doing before the kiss ended. He pulled back. Sloane's hand was still against his chest. Her eyes searched his face. Damon looked past her. Tessa was staring at him. He had seen his wife angry, disappointed, exhausted. He had never seen her look at him like that. There was no shouting in her face. No scene. That made it worse. Tessa set her glass on the nearest table. Then she walked toward them. Guests pretended not to watch. Nobody succeeded. Tessa stopped 3 feet away. Her gaze moved from Damon to Sloane. Then back. How long? Her voice was quiet. Damon swallowed. Tessa, how long? Sloane's hand dropped away from his chest. Damon looked around. Can we do this somewhere private? Tessa stared at him. You kissed her in front of 50 people, Tessa, and now you want privacy? Damon felt people listening. Humiliation mixed with guilt. The combination turned quickly into anger. How long have you been seeing Ashford? Tessa blinked. For the first time since approaching, genuine confusion crossed her face. What? You heard me. You just kissed another woman in front of me, and you've been meeting Callum behind my back. Tessa looked at Sloane. Something changed in her expression. Understanding, but not the understanding Damon expected. She looked back at him. You think I'm sleeping with Callum? I saw the pictures. What pictures? Don't what? Don't stand there and make me feel insane. Tessa's voice sharpened. I don't have to make you feel anything. You just kissed Sloane in front of me. Damon stepped closer. You met him and didn't tell me, yes. The answer caught him off guard. Sloane glanced at Tessa. Tessa continued. Yes, I met Callum, and I should have told you. Damon gave a bitter laugh. So there it is. No, there isn't. You expect me to believe nothing happened? I expect you to ask before convicting me. You hid it, and you kissed her. Because I'm supposed to pretend this doesn't matter? Tessa stared at him. Did you hear yourself? Damon knew the argument was collapsing. He felt it happening and pushed harder anyway.
You've been distant for months. I've been pregnant for 7 months. That isn't what I meant.
No, I know exactly what you meant. Tessa looked towards Sloane again. Were you sleeping with him while I was at home thinking we were trying to fix this? Tessa, Damon warned. Her eyes flashed. Don't use my name like I'm embarrassing you. Several guests looked away. Sloane finally spoke. Tessa, maybe we should all calm down. Tessa turned toward her. I wasn't talking to you. Sloane went quiet. Damon said, this doesn't need to become a spectacle. Tessa let out a breath that sounded almost like disbelief. You made it one. Her eyes lowered to her left hand. Damon saw what she was about to do. Tessa. She touched the wedding ring. For years, he had seen that ring on her hand so often, it had become part of how he pictured her. She twisted it once, then pulled it free. Damon's stomach dropped. Don't. She looked at him. There were tears in her eyes now, but her hand did not shake. You don't get to betray me and then make me responsible for it. Tessa reached for his hand. Damon did not open it. She took his wrist and turned his palm upward herself. Then she placed the ring there. The small weight felt enormous. Tessa.
I came here after a 2-hour doctor's appointment because this mattered to you. It matters to both of us.
No. Right now, I'm talking about what mattered to you. She took one step back. The baby is fine, by the way. Damon's face changed. Tessa gave a sad nod. You were going to ask eventually, weren't you? Tessa, that's not fair. She almost laughed. Fair? The word broke slightly. She caught herself. I can't do this here. Damon moved toward her. Then let's go upstairs. No. We need to talk. We did. We haven't talked about Callum. This is not about Callum. Yes, it is. No, Damon, you desperately want it to be. He stared at her. Tessa wiped beneath one eye. If Callum disappeared from the planet tonight, you would still have kissed Sloane. Damon had no answer. That silence told Tessa more than anything else had. She nodded once. I thought so. Then movement near the lobby drew several people's attention. Callum Ashford had arrived. He walked through the doors with 2 investors and an attorney Damon recognized from a private equity firm in New York. Callum was speaking to one of them when he noticed the unusual quiet near the pool. Then he saw Tessa. His expression changed. He excused himself from the group and walked toward them. Damon felt anger rise again. Of course Callum would arrive now. Tessa saw him coming and closed her eyes for a second. She looked exhausted. Callum stopped a few feet away. His eyes went to her face.
Then to Damon. Then to the wedding ring in Damon's open palm.
Sloane stood beside Damon, lips still colored from the kiss. Callum did not need an explanation. Tessa. She looked at him. Are you okay? Damon laughed bitterly. Callum glanced toward him. Something funny? Perfect timing. Callum's expression cooled. I was invited. I'm sure you were. Tessa turned toward Damon.
Stop. Damon ignored her. How long have you two been planning this?
Callum's eyebrows drew together. Planning what? Don't insult me. I don't know what you're talking about. Damon held up the ring. My wife walks out and you walk in. Callum looked at Tessa again. The tears on her face answered enough. He did not ask what Damon had done. He did not demand details. He simply said, do you need a ride? Damon stared at Tessa. For one irrational second, he was sure she would refuse. Whatever had happened, she was still his wife. She would not leave his resort with Callum Ashford. Not in front of investors. Not in front of Sloane. Not carrying his child. Tessa looked at Damon. He saw her there. He also saw something new. Distance. Yes, she said. One word. Damon's fingers closed around the ring. Tessa. She turned away. He stepped forward. We're not finished. She stopped. Without facing him, she said, you should have thought about that before you kissed her. Callum stayed beside her without touching her. They began walking toward the lobby. Damon watched them. Sloane moved closer. Let her cool down. He did not answer. Damon. He looked at Tessa's back. Callum opened the glass door for her. Tessa walked through. Callum followed. The door closed behind them. Damon finally looked down at the ring in his palm. Around him, conversation slowly resumed. Nobody approached him. Nobody knew what to say. The resort was still beautiful. The ocean was still blue. The opening was still technically a success. But Damon could no longer feel any of it. Sloane touched his arm. He pulled away before he even realized he was doing it. Across the driveway, Callum opened the passenger door of a black sedan. Tessa got in. Damon watched the car disappear into Miami traffic with his pregnant wife inside. For weeks, he had been terrified that Callum Ashford might take something from him. Standing beside the pool with Tessa's wedding ring cutting into his palm, Damon understood the first truth he had been avoiding. Callum had not taken anything. Damon had just handed him the chance to be there when Tessa finally walked away. Callum did not speak until the resort had disappeared behind them. Miami traffic crawled north beneath strings of white headlights. The city outside the car still looked alive, loud, expensive. Inside, everything felt strangely quiet. Tessa sat angled toward the window with both hands resting over her stomach. The baby moved again. She closed her eyes. Callum glanced toward her but kept both hands on the wheel. "Is the baby okay?" "Yes, you sure?" "She was fine at the appointment." He nodded. That was all. No questions about Damon. No questions about Sloane. No questions about why Tessa had just handed her wedding ring back to her husband in front of half of Miami's hospitality industry. Tessa was grateful for the silence. For about 30 seconds. Then the tears came. She turned her face toward the window. She hated crying in front of people. She hated it even more in front of Callum. He had known her before Damon, before Pierce hospitality, before she learned how quickly marriage could turn ordinary weaknesses into private weapons. Callum reached toward the center console, took a pack of tissues from the compartment, and placed it near her hand. He did not look at her. That somehow made it easier. Tessa pulled one free. "This is humiliating." "No." She gave him a wet, tired laugh. "You weren't there. I saw enough." "My husband kissed another woman in front of investors, employees, reporters, and probably 3 people who already posted it online." Callum's jaw tightened. That makes him humiliating. Tessa looked at him. He kept his eyes on the road. She said, "Please don't make this easier by turning him into a monster." "I didn't." "You were about to." "No, I was about to call him an idiot." Despite herself, Tessa laughed. It came out broken. Callum glanced at her. "There you are. Don't." "Okay." Her smile vanished almost immediately. She pressed the tissue beneath her eyes. "I knew something was wrong." Callum stayed quiet. He'd been distant for weeks. Angry about everything. If I questioned one decision, suddenly I didn't believe in him. If I was tired, I was pulling away. If I stayed late at work, he wanted to know why. Callum said, "Did you suspect Sloane?" "No." That answer hurt. Tessa shook her head. "I thought he was stressed." "That doesn't matter now." "No." She looked down at her hands. There was a pale line where her wedding ring had been. The missing weight felt wrong. She rubbed the skin with her thumb. Then she realized Callum had taken the next exit. "Where are we going?" "You tell me what?" "I asked if you needed a ride. I never asked where." For the first time since getting into the car, Tessa looked fully at him. "Rachel's. Address?" She gave it to him. Callum entered it into the navigation system. Then he drove. That was it. No suggestion that she stay at one of his hotels. No offer of a private apartment. No line about how she deserved better. Tessa had spent the last 2 hours watching men make assumptions about what she needed. Callum simply asked. It should not have felt unusual. It did. Rachel lived in a condo building near Biscayne Bay, far enough from Miami Beach to feel removed from the resort, but close enough that Tessa could see the lights across the water from her balcony. When Callum stopped outside, Tessa reached for the door. Tess. She paused. He looked at her carefully. "If you need help with anything practical, call me." "Practical?" "A car, a hotel room, someone to pick up your things, whatever." "I have a sister." "I know." "And friends." "I know." She studied him. "Then why offer?" "Because you might need something." The answer was so simple that she had no response. Callum added, "You don't owe me an explanation tonight. Thank you." He nodded. Tessa opened the door. Then she stopped again. "Callum."
Yeah, Damon thinks there's something between us.
Callum's expression did not change much, I figured. He said he saw pictures. "Pictures of what?" "Us." Callum frowned. "At lunch?" "I don't know." "We've met 3 times, I know. Evan was at one of them." "I know that too." Tessa stared out through the open door. "I should have told him." "Yes." She looked back sharply. Callum did not soften it. "You should have." Tessa felt a flash of irritation. Then she realized that was exactly why she trusted him enough to ask for advice in the first place. He would not tell her she was right simply because Damon had done something worse. Callum continued. "That still doesn't make what happened tonight your fault." "I know, do you?" Tessa swallowed. "I'm trying to." Callum nodded. "That's enough for tonight." Tessa got out. He stayed in the car until Rachel opened the building's front door and came rushing outside. Rachel was 4 years older than Tessa, shorter, louder, and completely incapable of hiding emotion. She took one look at Tessa's face. "What happened?" Tessa tried to answer. Rachel saw Callum in the driver's seat. Her eyes widened. Then she looked at Tessa's bare left hand. "Oh my God, Rachel. Oh my God, please." Rachel wrapped both arms around her. Tessa nearly lost control again. Rachel held her tighter. What did he do? Tessa closed her eyes. Can we go inside? Rachel looked over Tessa's shoulder at Callum. He gave her a short nod through the windshield. Then he drove away. Rachel watched the car disappear. That was Callum Ashford. Yes. The Callum Ashford? There's only one. Rachel opened the door. You're going to explain that, too. Not tonight. Fine. First Damon. Then Billionaire Transportation. Tessa almost laughed. Please stop calling him that. I'm stressed. Inside, Rachel put Tessa on the couch, brought her water, crackers, a blanket, and 2 different pillows before Tessa finally told her to sit down. Then Tessa told her what happened. Not every detail. Enough. Rachel listened with growing disbelief. When Tessa reached the kiss, Rachel's face hardened. In front of you? Yes. In front of everyone? Yes. And then he accused you of cheating? Basically. Rachel stood up. I'm going to kill him. No. I'll make it look like a boating accident. Rachel, I know people. You work in nonprofit fundraising. Those people own boats. Tessa covered her face. For the first time all night, she laughed hard enough that it hurt. Rachel sat beside her again. That's better. It's not funny. No, Damon isn't funny. Murder jokes are. Tessa leaned back. Her exhaustion came all at once. Rachel noticed. Stay here tonight. I was planning to. Stay as long as you want. I can't live on your couch for 6 months. I have a guest room. It has boxes in it. They're decorative. Tessa smiled faintly. Rachel touched her hand. Then she noticed the missing ring again. You gave it back? Yes. Good. Tessa looked down. Rachel's voice softened. I'm sorry. So am I. Her phone started vibrating inside her purse. Tessa did not need to check the screen. She knew. Rachel looked at the bag. Damon, probably. The phone stopped. 3 seconds later, it started again. Rachel reached toward the purse. Tessa caught her wrist. No. I was going to silence it. You were going to answer. I was going to silence it after answering. Tessa pulled the purse closer. Leave it. Rachel sat back. Fine. The phone stopped. Then another call came, then another. By the 6th call, Tessa turned the phone off. She slept badly. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Damon's hand around Sloane's wrist. The kiss. Sloane's palm against his chest. Damon's face afterward. The worst part was not the shock. It was the instant understanding that the kiss had not been there first. He had known where to put his hands. Sloane had not looked surprised for long. There had been familiarity between them. Tessa had spent weeks wondering why her husband seemed angry with her. Now she knew he had probably been carrying guilt and turning it into resentment. That realization hurt almost as much as the betrayal itself. At 7 the next morning, Tessa turned her phone back on. 23 missed calls, 14 messages. Most were from Damon. A few came from employees, 1 from Evan, 2 from people Tessa had not spoken to in months. There were also social media notifications she refused to open. Rachel entered with coffee. Don't look online. I wasn't planning to. That means you already thought about it. I'm not looking. Good. Tessa opened Damon's messages. Call me. We need to talk. Where are you? Tessa, please answer. This is getting out of control. Then at 1:30 in the morning, are you with him? Tessa stared at that sentence. Rachel leaned over.
Is he serious? Tessa locked the phone? Yes. After kissing Sloane? Yes.
Men are fascinating, Rachel. No, genuinely. Scientists should study this. I need a shower. Her phone rang again. Damon. Tessa watched the screen for 5 seconds, then answered. What? His voice came fast. Where are you? At Rachel's. Why didn't you answer? I was asleep. I called 20 times. I noticed. Is Ashford there? Tessa closed her eyes. Rachel mouthed something deeply unhelpful from across the room. Tessa turned away. No. Damon was silent for a beat. Then he asked, did you sleep with him? Tessa's entire body went still. What? You heard me. For a second, she actually could not speak. Damon continued. I need the truth. The truth? Tessa, you kissed Sloane in front of me last night, and this is your first real conversation with me? I'm trying to understand what's been happening. No, you're trying to make what you did feel smaller. That isn't fair. She laughed once. It had no humor in it. You keep using that word. I saw you with him. You saw a picture. You hid the meetings. Yes, so answer me. Tessa looked at Rachel. Her sister had stopped joking. She was watching now, worried. Tessa spoke slowly. No, Damon. I did not sleep with Callum. Silence. Then Damon said, are you in love with him? Tessa hung up. Her hands were shaking. Rachel took the phone away. You're done, I know. No, I mean today. You are done with him today. Tessa looked toward the window. I can't decide my entire life in 24 hours. You already gave him the ring. That was one decision. Rachel sat beside her. Tess, I'm pregnant. I know. I built a life with him. I know. We have a child coming. I know. Rachel lowered her voice. That doesn't mean you have to decide everything this morning. Tessa nodded. Exactly. But you do get to stop answering questions designed to put you on trial. Tessa looked at her sister. That landed. By late afternoon, Damon came to the building. Rachel refused to let him upstairs until Tessa agreed. When the buzzer sounded, Rachel folded her arms. Say the word and I'll tell security he threatened me. He didn't. He could. Rachel. Fine. Tessa took a breath. Let him up. Damon appeared at the door 10 minutes later. He looked terrible. His clothes were clean, but he had not shaved. His eyes were red. He seemed smaller without the resort, without investors, without a room full of people expecting him to know what to do. Rachel opened the door. If she tells you to leave, you leave. Damon stared at her. Rachel, I mean it. I came to talk to my wife. Rachel's expression hardened. Tessa stepped into view. Don't call me that like nothing happened. Damon looked at her. For a second, the anger left his face. Tessa. She walked toward the living room. Sit. Rachel remained near the kitchen. Tessa glanced at her. I'm okay. Rachel looked at Damon. I'm 10 feet away. Then she disappeared into the kitchen without actually going anywhere. Damon sat across from Tessa. He looked at her stomach. How's the baby? Tessa almost smiled at the lateness of the question. Fine. Was the appointment okay? Yes, he nodded. I should have asked last night, yes. I know. Tessa waited. Damon rubbed his hands together. I'm sorry. She looked at him, he continued. What I did was wrong. Yes, I shouldn't have kissed Sloane. Tessa's face changed. Damon noticed. What, you say that like it was one kiss? His eyes dropped. Tessa felt cold despite the warm room. How long? Tessa. No, you didn't answer last night. Answer now. Damon looked toward the kitchen. Rachel was definitely listening. Tessa said, look at me. He did. How long? Damon swallowed. It started getting inappropriate a couple months ago. Inappropriate how? We talk too much. That isn't what I asked. He rubbed a hand across his jaw. The first kiss was about 6 weeks ago. Tessa stared at him. 6 weeks, she thought backward. Doctor appointments. A dinner Damon missed because he said a meeting ran late. The night he came home after midnight and slept in the guest room because he claimed he did not want to wake her, she asked. Anything more? Damon hesitated. Her stomach turned. We kissed more than once. Did you sleep with her? No. She watched his face. I didn't. Tessa believed him. Strangely, that did not make much difference. 6 weeks of lying still existed. 6 weeks of allowing her to believe their marriage was intact. Damon leaned forward. I know how bad this looks. Tessa stared at him. Please don't say something that stupid again. He stopped. She folded her hands over her stomach. Why? I don't know. Yes, you do. We were fighting constantly so? I felt like everything I did was wrong. You kissed someone because I disagreed with your business plan? That's not what I said. That's what it sounds like. Damon stood. I came here to apologize. Then apologize. I am. No. You're explaining why I made you unhappy enough to do it. He froze. Tessa's voice remained calm. That isn't an apology. Damon sat again. For several seconds, neither spoke. Then he said, tell me about Callum. Tessa almost laughed. You cannot help yourself. I need to know. Fine. Damon looked up. Tessa took a breath. I met him 3 times. Damon's jaw tightened. 3, yes. Where? Once at a coffee shop in Brickell. Once at his office. Once at the restaurant. His office during business hours. That makes it better? I'm answering your question. Why him? Because you stopped listening. Damon leaned back as if she had slapped him. Tessa continued. I told you I was worried about expansion. And I disagreed. You dismissed me. I made a decision. No. You stopped having a discussion. Tessa, it's my company. The words hung there. Her eyes changed. Damon heard himself. Tessa said quietly, there it is. That isn't what I meant. Yes, it is. I built Pierce Hospitality. We built Pierce Hospitality. I know. Do you? Damon rubbed his forehead. This isn't about ownership. No. It's about respect. He looked frustrated. You went to my biggest competitor. I went to someone with enough experience to tell me whether I was overreacting. And were you? No. Damon looked away. Tessa said Evan agreed. His head snapped back. What? Evan was at one of the meetings. Damon frowned. The picture didn't show Evan. What picture? The one of you and Callum. Show me. He reached for his phone, then stopped. I don't have it with me. Your phone is in your hand. I don't have it saved. Tessa stared at him. Who showed it to you? Damon hesitated. Her eyes narrowed. Who? He looked away. Tessa understood enough to stop asking for the moment. Damon said, "Why didn't you tell me?" That question was fair. She knew it, and because it was fair, she answered, "Because I was afraid of exactly this." He frowned. "This? The second I said Callum's name, you would stop hearing anything else. You still should have told me." Yes, the word came quickly. Damon looked surprised. Tessa nodded. "I should have told you." Her voice softened. "I was wrong to hide it." Something in Damon's face changed. For a second, he looked relieved. Tessa saw it. That made her angry. "Don't." "What?" "Don't use my mistake to erase yours. I'm not." "You are." I said, "I'm sorry. And I admitted I should have told you." She leaned forward. "Now answer one question." Damon waited. Tessa looked directly into his eyes. "Did you kiss Sloane before or after you saw those pictures?" He stopped breathing for a second. That was all she needed. Tessa sat back. Damon said nothing. Her eyes filled, but her voice stayed steady. "Before, Tessa." "It was before." I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Damon looked down. The room became painfully quiet. Tessa nodded to herself. "So the pictures didn't cause anything." "They changed what I thought was happening. They gave you an excuse. That isn't fair." Tessa stared at him. "The pictures gave you an excuse. They didn't give you permission." Damon looked up sharply. She continued. "You were already cheating." I kissed her repeatedly. "Yes, you hid it. Yes. And then when you saw something you didn't understand, instead of asking me, you decided it made you less guilty." Damon stood again. "I never said that." "You didn't have to." "Tessa, I came here because I want to fix this." "Do you?" "Yes." "Then why have you spent more time asking whether I slept with Callum than explaining why you kissed Sloane?" He had no answer. Tessa looked exhausted now. Not angry. That frightened Damon more. He stepped closer. "I love you." Tessa's expression broke for half a second. Then she looked away. "I believe you." Damon stared at her. That was not the response he expected. Tessa continued. "I think you love me. Then let me fix it. Love isn't the problem." "What does that mean?" "It means you can love someone and still treat them badly." Damon's face tightened. "Tessa, you can love someone and still lie to them." He looked down. "You can love someone and still decide your pride matters more than their trust." Damon sat back slowly. From the kitchen, Rachel remained silent. Tessa looked at him. "I don't know what happens next." Damon nodded quickly. "Okay, that isn't hope." His face fell. "I'm telling you the truth." He looked at her bare hand. "Are you really done?" "I don't know what I am yet." "Tessa, I need space." "With Callum?" Her expression went flat. Damon realized his mistake immediately. "That's not what I meant." "Yes, it is." "No. You did it again. I'm asking because he's involved." "He is involved because I asked for business advice. And because he picked you up last night. You kissed Sloane in front of me." Damon looked toward the floor. Tessa stood. The conversation was over. "I need you to leave." He rose too. "Can I call you tonight?" "No." "Tomorrow?" "I'll call you when I'm ready." "Tessa, please." She held his gaze. "Go home." "To what?" The question slipped out before Damon could stop it. Tessa looked at him. There was sadness in her face now. "That's something you should have thought about 6 weeks ago." Rachel appeared from the kitchen and opened the front door. Damon stared at Tessa for another moment. Then he left. Rachel closed the door behind him. For several seconds, Tessa did not move. Then her shoulders dropped. Rachel walked toward her. "You okay?" "Good answer." Tessa sat down. Rachel joined her. "Do you want me to tell you what I think?" "No, great." "I'm going to anyway." Tessa gave her a tired look. Rachel took her hand. "You can regret hiding the meetings and still know he did worse." "I know." "You can love him and still leave." "I know." "You can want him to be a good father and decide he isn't your husband anymore." Tessa looked down. "That one's harder." Rachel squeezed her fingers. "It doesn't have to be decided today." Tessa nodded. Across Miami Beach, Damon returned to the resort just after sunset. The opening celebrations were over. The pool deck had been cleared. Staff moved quietly between tables. Damon walked into his office and closed the door. Sloane was already there. She had changed out of her event dress and into black slacks and a silk blouse. A laptop sat open in front of her. She looked up. "How did it go?" Damon stared at her. Sloane closed the laptop. "That bad?" she admitted, meeting him. Sloane's expression changed carefully. "How many times?" "3." Sloane leaned back. "Damon. And Evan was supposedly there once." "Supposedly?" That's what she said. Sloane watched him. Damon poured himself water instead of whiskey. "Tessa says it was business. What do you think?" "I don't know." Sloane looked down. He noticed. "What?" "Nothing." There it is again. She sighed. I think you want me to tell you she's lying. Do you? I think people usually don't hide innocent things. Damon looked toward the window. The ocean was black beyond the glass. Sloane's voice softened. She walked out with him. He gave her a ride. She chose him in front of you. Damon turned. Tessa didn't choose him. Sloane paused. Okay, he hated how quickly she agreed. He also hated how much he wanted her to disagree. Damon sat down. She gave me back the ring. I know. She said the pictures didn't give me permission. Sloane studied him. What does that mean? She knows the first kiss happened before I saw them. Sloane went still. Damon looked at her. I told her. You told her everything? I told her enough. Silence. Then Sloane stood and came around the desk. You made a mistake. Damon laughed bitterly. That's one way to put it. She did too. He looked at her. Sloane stopped a few feet away. She hid meetings with Callum Ashford from you. That doesn't make what I did okay. I didn't say it did. Then what are you saying? I'm saying you're sitting here acting like the entire marriage collapsed because you kissed me. Damon's expression hardened. Sloane continued. Maybe it collapsed because both of you stopped trusting each other months ago. The words were dangerous because part of them was true. Damon looked away. Tessa had hidden the meetings. He had hidden Sloane. Those things were not equal. But Sloane did not need them to be equal. She only needed Damon to feel less alone in his guilt. She touched his shoulder. You don't have to solve everything tonight. Damon did not move away. Sloane stood beside him quietly. No challenge, no accusation, no reminder that he had failed. Just agreement. For the moment, Damon let himself mistake that relief for peace. Across the bay, Tessa lay awake in Rachel's guest room with one hand over her stomach and her wedding ring no longer on the nightstand. For the first time in years, Damon did not know exactly where his wife was emotionally. For the first time in years, Tessa was no longer trying to make sure he did. And between them, the distance Damon had blamed on Callum Ashford was finally becoming something much more dangerous. A life Tessa might learn she could live without him. 3 days after Damon left Rachel's condo, Tessa woke before sunrise because Grace had apparently decided sleep was optional. The baby kicked hard enough to pull her completely awake. Tessa opened her eyes and stared at the unfamiliar ceiling above the guest bed. For a few seconds, she forgot where she was. Then she saw the overnight bag near the dresser, her prenatal vitamins on the nightstand, her wedding ring missing from her hand. Memory returned quickly. She rested one palm over her stomach. Your timing is terrible. Another kick. Tessa sighed. Fine. You win. She pushed herself upright and slowly made her way to the kitchen. Rachel was already there in workout clothes, staring into the refrigerator. You're awake. So are you. Going running. At 5:40? Rachel shut the refrigerator. I'm avoiding traffic. You don't run in traffic. I'm avoiding people. That I believe. Rachel looked at her. You okay? Tessa poured water. Ask me after coffee. You can't have much coffee. Then ask me after disappointment. Rachel smiled. The apartment had become easier to breathe in over the past few days. Not comfortable exactly. Tessa still woke expecting Damon beside her. She still reached for her phone whenever something happened with the baby because for years Damon had been the first person she told. But Rachel's home had no history. No arguments trapped in the walls. No photographs from anniversaries. No closet full of Damon's shirts beside her dresses. That helped. Tessa had also stopped answering every message from Pierce Hospitality. She still cared about the company. Too much, probably. But she could no longer keep solving problems for Damon while pretending they were only business partners. Evan had taken over more of the operational decisions. Damon had not objected, at least not directly. His messages came less often now. Most were short. How are you? How's the baby? Do you need anything? Tessa answered only the ones about Grace. The separation had created a strange kind of clarity. Damon had spent months telling her she was too negative, too cautious, too involved. Now, with distance between them, Tessa could finally admit how much energy she had spent managing his reactions before speaking. She had edited herself inside her own marriage. That realization bothered her more than any business dispute ever had. Rachel put on her sneakers. You have the appointment today, right? 11:30. I'll drive you. You have work. I moved lunch. Rachel, what? You don't have to rearrange your life every time I have a doctor's appointment. I'm your sister. It's literally in the contract. There's no contract. Then I'm protected legally. Tessa gave her a look. Rachel grabbed her keys. I'll be back by 7. Try to sleep. Tessa did not. Instead, she sat at the small dining table with her laptop and opened the report Evan had emailed the night before. The Denver project was still moving forward. Slower now. Damon had not canceled it. He had only postponed one major commitment. That was better than nothing. Tessa read the numbers twice. Then she opened the message Callum had sent the previous evening. Evan thinks Damon may delay the Denver land closing. That would help. No personal question, no mention of the pool. No attempt to use the crisis as an opening. Tessa stared at the message. She had known Callum for almost 10 years. They met when she was 22 and working for a hotel consulting firm in Chicago. Callum had been 30 and already running acquisitions for his family company. He liked her immediately. Tessa knew because Callum had never been subtle when he wanted something. He asked her to dinner. She said no. He asked again 6 months later. She still said no. Eventually, the attraction between them became something neither discussed. Then Tessa met Damon. Callum stepped back. He never insulted Damon. Never tried to convince her she was making a mistake. Never treated friendship like a debt she owed him. That mattered now. Maybe more than Tessa wanted it to. Her phone rang. Evan, she answered. You're calling too early. You're awake. How do you know? You replied to my email at 6:11. Fair. How are you? Fine. I wasn't asking about the spreadsheet. I know. There was a pause. Then Evan said, Damon's been difficult. More than usual? Different. Tessa leaned back. How? He's second-guessing everything. That sounds new. You know what I mean. She did. Evan continued. He keeps asking what you would think. Tessa went quiet. He asked that? Twice yesterday. That's not helpful. I didn't say it to help. Then why tell me? Because you care about the company, and because pretending this separation doesn't affect him would be dishonest. Tessa looked out toward the dark window. Did he ask you about Callum? Evan hesitated. That's a yes. He asked whether you and Callum ever worked together before Pierce. What did you say? The truth. That Callum and I knew each other, and that he tried to recruit you once. Tessa closed her eyes. Evan, what? It happened. You could have left that out, he asked directly. She exhaled. Great. For what it's worth, I also told him Callum recruited half the competent people in hospitality at some point. That won't matter. No. Evan sounded almost amused. Tessa, Damon's problem with Callum didn't start last week. I know, then stop acting surprised. She looked down at Callum's message still open on the laptop. I'm not surprised. That was the problem. She understood Damon's insecurity better than Damon did. For years she had worked around it. If Callum's company appeared in a trade article, Tessa never mentioned it. If Callum called about industry news, she kept the conversation short. If Damon made a joke about inherited money, she did not challenge him. She had told herself she was protecting her marriage. In reality, she had trained herself to avoid anything that might trigger his jealousy. Evan said, You there? Yeah, you okay? I'm realizing I've been doing something stupid for a long time. That narrows it down. Thanks. You're welcome. Tessa smiled. Then Evan's voice became more serious. For what it's worth, you don't have to come back until you're ready. I know. Damon knows too. Does he? He does now. Tessa thanked him and ended the call. By 10:45, she was dressed and waiting near the front door when Rachel came rushing out of her bedroom holding one shoe. Problem. What? My car won't start. Tessa looked at the clock. You're kidding. I wish. Battery? I don't know. It makes a clicking sound. That sounds like the battery. Good, you're now a mechanic. Tessa grabbed her purse. I'll call a car. Rachel was already looking at her phone. Wait, what? There's some giant accident near the causeway. Everything is showing 25 minutes just to get here. My appointment is in 40. I'll get you there. With what? Rachel stared at the keys in her hand as if disappointment might repair the engine. Tessa opened a ride app. 2 drivers canceled within 5 minutes. The third had not moved. Rachel swore under her breath. I'm calling a cab. It's fine. It's not fine. Tessa checked the time again. She could reschedule. She hated that idea. Today's appointment included a longer ultrasound because her doctor wanted to monitor a measurement that had been slightly off at the last visit. Nothing alarming. Still, Tessa wanted to go. Her phone buzzed. A message from Callum. Evan says Denver may get delayed after all. Congratulations on being right. I know you hate that. Tessa stared at it. Rachel noticed. Who? No one. That means Callum. Tessa looked at her sister. How do you know that? You make a specific face. I do not. You absolutely do. Tessa ignored her and typed. Are you still in Miami? His reply came almost immediately. Until tonight. She hesitated, then typed again. This is awkward. Rachel's car died and I'm going to miss a prenatal appointment. Are you anywhere near Biscayne? 3 dots appeared. Then, 10 minutes away. Tessa stared at the screen. Rachel leaned closer. What did he say? He's nearby. Rachel raised an eyebrow. That man is suspiciously available. He has meetings here. Billionaires have helicopters. He's driving. You know this how? Tessa gave her a look. Rachel smiled. I like irritating you. It's keeping you alive. 9 minutes later, a black sedan pulled into the loading area. Callum was driving himself. Rachel looked through the window.
I expected a driver. Please stop. I expected a convoy. Rachel.
Fine. Callum stepped out as Tessa approached. His eyes moved briefly over her face. You okay? Yes. Just late. He opened the passenger door. Rachel appeared behind Tessa. Bring her back. Callum looked at her. That was the plan. And don't stress her, I'll do my best. Rachel folded her arms. I've heard rich men say that before. Tessa turned. I'm leaving now. Rachel smiled sweetly. Have fun at the doctor. No one has fun at these. Callum waited until Tessa was settled, then closed the door. They pulled into traffic. For the first few minutes, neither Callum said, Rachel likes me. She doesn't trust anyone with more than one home. That's fair. She also doesn't trust anyone with one home. That seems less fair. Tessa smiled. Callum glanced toward her. You look better. Then what? The last time I saw you, that's a low bar. Still true. She adjusted the seatbelt beneath her stomach. Thank you for coming. You don't have to keep thanking me. I called with 9 minutes notice. You were nearby. You were nearby. I was. Convenient. Callum looked at her. Are you accusing me of stalking? No. Good. It's difficult to explain that to shareholders. She laughed. The sound surprised her. Callum did not make anything of it. He drove faster when traffic opened and slowed without complaint when it closed again. They arrived with 6 minutes to spare. Callum pulled to the curb outside the medical building. Tessa reached for the door. Thanks. I'll wait. Paused. You don't have to. I know. This could take an hour. I have calls. You can leave. I know. Tessa looked at him. Callum shrugged. You'll need a ride back. I can call someone. You can. His tone made no demand. That was what decided it. Fine. He nodded. I'll be in the lobby. Not upstairs. I know what lobby means. She smiled despite herself. Right. The appointment took 1 hour and 47 minutes. Grace was healthy. The measurement her doctor had been watching looked normal. Tessa left the exam room with 3 ultrasound images tucked into an envelope and a relief she had not realized she was carrying. She took the elevator down. Callum was sitting near a large window in the lobby, jacket folded beside him, phone pressed to his ear. No, he was saying, move the call. If they can't wait 40 minutes, they probably don't need my money. He looked up and saw Tessa. His voice changed. I have to go. He ended the call and stood. Everything okay? Yes. The baby? Perfectly healthy. Callum smiled. Good. Tessa held up the envelope. She apparently has Damon's nose. Callum looked at the envelope but did not ask to see the image. Again, boundary. Again, restraint. Tessa noticed. You waited almost 2 hours. You said an hour. It took almost 2. Callum picked up his jacket. You're pregnant. I figured schedules were suggestions now. Tessa laughed. Really laughed. A woman near reception glanced over. Tessa covered her mouth. That was terrible. I've had worse reviews. From whom? You mostly. They walked toward the exit. Something about the moment felt almost normal. That bothered her enough that she became quiet. Callum noticed but did not ask. Outside, Miami sunlight hit hard off the glass buildings. He opened the car door. Tessa looked at him. Callum. Yeah? I'm not ready for anything. His expression remained steady. I know. I mean anything I know. I don't want you thinking because Damon and I are separated, Tessa. She stopped. Callum spoke calmly. You do not owe me a relationship because your husband hurt you. The sentence stripped away the argument she had prepared. He continued. You also don't owe me an explanation every time I help you. She looked at him. Then why are you helping? Callum thought for a moment. Because you're my friend. That simple? No, his honesty surprised her. He held her gaze. But simple enough for today. Tessa looked away first. Callum opened the door. She got in, neither mentioned it again. Damon was leaving a late lunch meeting near Brickell when he saw the black sedan. He noticed the car first because Callum drove a model Damon recognized. Then he saw Tessa in the passenger seat. Callum stopped outside Rachel's building. Tessa turned toward him. They spoke for a few seconds. Then she smiled. That smile hit Damon harder than it should have. He had barely seen it in months. Callum said something else. Tessa laughed. Damon stood on the sidewalk across the street, motionless. His lunch companion was still talking beside him. Damon? He barely heard. Tessa opened the passenger door. Callum got out too. He walked around the car and handed her the envelope she had left on the seat. Damon recognized the medical center logo. A prenatal appointment. His stomach turned. Callum had driven his pregnant wife to the doctor. Damon crossed the street before deciding to. Tessa. She froze. Callum looked toward him. Damon stopped several feet away. What is this? Tessa stared at him. What do you mean? You went to the doctor with him? Callum said. I drove her. Damon looked at him. I wasn't talking to you. Callum's expression cooled. Tessa stepped forward. Rachel's car broke down. You could have called me. You're serious? Yes. I've been asking you for space. That doesn't mean you let him take you to appointments for my child. Tessa's eyes narrowed. He waited in the lobby. That's supposed to make me feel better? No. None of this is about making you feel better. Damon looked at Callum. Stay away from my wife. Tessa's face went still. Callum opened his mouth. Tessa lifted one hand. Callum looked at her. She shook her head once. He understood. He stayed silent. Tessa turned back to Damon. You don't get to call me your wife after kissing another woman in front of me. Damon's jaw tightened. We're still married. Legally. Tessa. No. You don't get to use that word when it's convenient. Damon stepped closer. I'm trying to fix this. By telling another man where he's allowed to stand? He's been waiting for this. Callum's expression changed. Tessa spoke before he could. Stop. Damon pointed toward Callum. He wanted you before we got married. That doesn't matter. It matters to me. That is exactly the problem. What does that mean? It means everything becomes about what you feel threatened by. Damon laughed sharply. You've been meeting him behind my back. Yes. And I already told you that was wrong. Then why is he still here? Because Rachel's car broke down. Come on. Tessa stared at him. What do you want me to say? The truth. I have been telling you the truth. Are you in love with him? Callum looked away. Tessa went very quiet. That is none of your business. Damon's face changed. That's an answer. No. It's a boundary. You're my wife. Stop calling me that. Damon looked at the medical envelope in her hand. His anger softened for a second. How was the appointment? Tessa hesitated. The baby is healthy. He nodded. Can I see? She looked down at the envelope. 3 ultrasound pictures. For a moment, old instinct took over. She almost handed them to him immediately. Then she realized she wanted to. Not because he demanded it. Because he was Grace's father. Tessa opened the envelope and gave him one image. Damon took it carefully. His expression changed. The fight disappeared from his face. She's bigger. Yes. His thumb moved over the edge of the photograph. She has your chin. Doctor thinks she has your nose. A small smile appeared. Then Damon looked up and saw Callum standing nearby. The jealousy returned. Tessa saw it happen. That hurt more than she expected. Even now, even while holding a picture of their daughter, Callum could still pull Damon away from the only thing that should matter. Damon handed the ultrasound back. I want to take you home. I'm already home. That's Rachel's condo. For now. Tessa, I'm going upstairs. Damon looked at Callum again. You should go. Callum finally spoke. She already said that. Damon stepped toward him. What? Callum's voice remained controlled. She said she's going upstairs. That ends the conversation. Damon's face hardened. You don't speak for her. No. Callum looked toward Tessa. That's the point. Damon went silent. Tessa felt the sentence land between them. Callum did not need to defend her. He had listened when she raised her hand. He had stayed quiet while she handled Damon. Only now, when Damon kept pushing, did Callum say anything. And even then, he did not tell Tessa what to do. He reminded Damon that she already had. Tessa looked at Callum. I'll call you later. He nodded, no rush. Damon watched the exchange. Callum got back into his car and drove away. Tessa turned toward the building. Damon followed her 2 steps. Tessa. She stopped but did not turn. I'm sorry. She looked over her shoulder. For which part? Damon had no immediate answer. Tessa nodded. That's what I thought. She walked inside. Damon remained outside. For years, he had believed his role in Tessa's life was obvious. Husband, partner, protector, the person she came home to. Now another man had driven her to an appointment, waited nearly 2 hours, and brought her back without demanding anything in return. That was what Damon could not understand. Callum had wealth, influence, power Damon still wanted. Yet around Tessa, Callum seemed willing to do something Damon had forgotten how to do. Wait. Damon returned to his car but did not start it. He looked at the photograph of Grace he had taken with his phone before handing the ultrasound back. Then he opened Tessa's contact. He typed, I'm sorry. Deleted it. Typed, I shouldn't have confronted you like that. Deleted that, too. Finally, thank you for letting me see her. He sent it. Tessa read the message upstairs. Rachel was on the floor beside a box of baby clothes, trying to organize them by size. What did he say? Tessa showed her. Rachel read it. That's almost mature. Almost. You answering? Tessa thought about it, then typed, "You're her father. I'm not trying to take that away from you." She sent the message. Rachel watched her. "You still love him?" Tessa put the phone down. "Yes." Rachel looked surprised by how quickly she answered. Tessa folded a tiny white onesie. "Love doesn't disappear because someone disappoints you." "No. It would be easier if it did." Rachel picked up a pair of socks. "Are you going back?" Tessa stopped folding. "I don't know." Rachel waited. Tessa corrected herself. "No." The word came quietly. "I don't think I can. That sounds different." "It is." Tessa looked toward the window. "No. I keep thinking about what happened outside." "Damon yelling?" "No." "Callum looking expensive?" Tessa gave her a look. Rachel smiled. "Sorry." Tessa continued. "When Damon told Callum to stay away from me, Callum started to answer. I stopped him." "He stopped." Rachel shrugged. "That's normal." Tessa stared at her. "It should be." Rachel's smile faded. Tessa looked down at the baby clothes. "I've spent years trying to keep Damon calm enough to hear me. I know what subjects not to bring up when he's stressed. I know when to wait. I know when to soften something so he doesn't hear criticism." Rachel was quiet now. Tessa continued. "I didn't notice how much of myself I was editing until Callum didn't make you do it." Tessa looked at her. "Maybe." Rachel folded a blanket. "That doesn't mean you have to fall in love with him." "I know. It just means the bar has been underground." Tessa laughed softly. "That's cruel. It's efficient." Later that evening, Callum sat in the back of a conference room at his hotel while two executives reviewed an acquisition proposal. He had heard maybe half of it. His phone remained face down beside his notes. One executive finished speaking. Callum looked up. "Sorry. Repeat the last point." The man did. Callum listened this time. After the meeting ended, his chief operating officer, Marcus Reed, stayed behind. "You distracted?" "No." Marcus looked at the phone. "That's a terrible lie." Callum leaned back. Marcus had worked with him for 12 years and was one of the few people willing to ignore his title. "You drove Tessa Pierce to a doctor's appointment." Callum looked at him.
News travels fast. Miami is a village with valet parking. Callum closed his folder. It wasn't what you think.
"I don't think anything. You obviously do. I think Damon Pierce hates you enough already. That's Damon's problem." Marcus crossed his arms. "And Tessa?" Callum did not answer immediately. Marcus understood. "That's what I thought. She's separated. She's also pregnant, publicly humiliated, and still emotionally attached to her husband." "I know." "Good." Callum's expression cooled. "I'm not taking advantage of her." "I didn't say you were. You were thinking it." Marcus smiled. "Apparently everyone is doing that today." Callum looked toward the windows. "She told me she isn't ready." "For what?" "Anything." "And what did you say?" "That I know." Marcus nodded. "Then keep knowing." Callum gave him a dry look. "Thank you, Dr. Reed. You pay me enough to be annoying. I pay you to run operations. Same skill set." Callum almost smiled. Then his phone buzzed. "Tessa, thank you again for today, and for staying out of the argument when I asked." Callum read the message twice. Marcus noticed. "I'll leave before you become embarrassing. Get out." Marcus laughed and walked away. Callum typed, "You didn't need me to fight for you." He stopped, deleted it, then wrote, "You asked me to stop, so I stopped." He sent that instead. Tessa read the reply while standing near Rachel's balcony doors. She looked at the screen for a long moment. Then she placed the phone down. No promise, no pressure, no hidden demand, just acknowledgement. Across the city, Damon sat alone in the master bedroom of the house he and Tessa had shared. Her side of the closet remained full. Her shoes lined the lower shelves. A bottle of lotion still sat beside the sink. Everything looked temporary, as if she had gone away for a weekend. Damon sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty space beside him. He had spent weeks fearing Callum Ashford because Callum had more money, more properties, more influence. Tonight, for the first time, Damon understood that none of those things were the real threat. Callum had done something far simpler. He had listened when Tessa said no. And Damon could not remember the last time he had done the same. For the first few weeks after Tessa left, Damon told himself the quiet was a relief. Nobody questioned the late dinners. Nobody asked whether the Denver numbers had been updated. Nobody looked across the kitchen island and said, "That assumption doesn't make sense," when he mentioned a new deal. Sloane stayed at the house more often. At first, she kept an overnight bag in the guest room. Then her clothes began appearing in the master bathroom. A dress hung beside Tessa's empty space in the closet. A bottle of perfume sat near the sink. Damon noticed the changes. He never asked her to stop. He also never asked her to move in. They simply drifted into something that looked like a relationship because neither wanted to say what it actually was. Sloane made life easier. That was what Damon had wanted, wasn't it? She loved the restaurants he liked. She enjoyed the same events. She never complained when he took a call during dinner. If he came home angry about a meeting, she listened. When he said Denver would turn around, she told him it would. When he said Atlanta needed to move faster, she agreed. When he said the board had become too cautious, Sloane rolled her eyes and said, "They hired you to lead. Let them worry." It felt good. For a while. Then Denver missed another construction deadline. A contractor demanded a revised payment schedule. Advance bookings in Miami softened after the opening surge. Atlanta's land negotiations became more expensive than expected. Each problem alone was manageable. Together, they started to sound familiar. Damon stood in the Miami conference room one Tuesday morning while Evan Brooks reviewed a set of updated projections. Nobody spoke until Evan finished. Damon looked at the screen. "That occupancy drop is temporary." Evan nodded. "It may be. Maybe. We don't have enough data yet." Damon leaned back in his chair. "So we panicked because of 1 weak month?" "No one said panic. You moved Denver into the red." "I moved Denver where the numbers put it." Sloane sat near the far end of the table. She looked at Damon. "Miami is still getting strong press." Evan answered without looking at her. "Press is not the same thing as cash flow." Damon's mouth tightened. Sloane crossed her arms. "I know that," Evan continued. "If Denver requires another capital injection while Miami is still stabilizing, Atlanta needs to slow down." Damon stared at the numbers. 6 months earlier, Tessa had said almost the same thing, not with those exact words, but close enough that he heard her voice anyway. You can't build 3 staircases at once and act surprised when no one knows which floor they're on. He had laughed when she said it. Then he accused her of exaggerating. Now Evan was telling him the same thing with a spreadsheet behind him. Damon looked at the room. "What did Tessa say when you showed her this?" Evan paused. Sloane turned toward Damon. Evan said, "I didn't. You still talk to her." "Sometimes." "About the company?" "Sometimes." Damon leaned forward. "And?" Evan chose his words carefully. "She told me before the opening that Denver was carrying too much timing risk." Damon looked away. Sloane spoke. "She also went to Callum Ashford behind your back." The room changed. Evan's eyes moved toward her. Damon noticed. "What?" "Nothing," Evan said. "That look wasn't nothing." Evan closed his laptop. "I think we should stay on the numbers." Damon's voice sharpened. "I asked you a question." Evan sighed. "Tessa's meeting Callum doesn't make her projections wrong." Sloane gave a quiet laugh. "No one said it did. You implied it." "I said she went behind Damon's back. And Damon heard you." Sloane's face cooled. Damon held up one hand. "Enough." Nobody spoke. He stared at the projected numbers again. Then he said, "Delay Atlanta by 30 days. Evan nodded. "And Denver? Keep it moving." "That gives us very little room." "I know." Evan looked as if he wanted to argue. He did not. Damon stood, meeting over. People began collecting folders. Evan stayed seated. Damon waited until the room cleared. "What?" Evan looked at him. "You asked what Tessa would think." "Yes. She'd tell you 30 days isn't enough." Damon's jaw tightened. "You know that for a fact?" "I worked with both of you for 6 years." "That wasn't my question." "No." Evan stood. "Then call her and ask." He walked out. Damon remained alone. Almost. Sloane was still standing near the window. "You shouldn't let Evan talk to you like that." Damon looked at her. "What does that mean? He's an employee. He's also right sometimes." "Sometimes." Damon studied her. A few months ago, that answer would have calmed him. Now it irritated him. "You think I should keep Denver moving?" "Yes. You haven't looked at the full projections." "I don't need to. You know this business better than anyone." "That's not an answer." Sloane blinked. He heard Tessa again. "That's not an answer." Damon rubbed his face. Sloane walked closer. "You're tired. I'm fine. You haven't been sleeping." I said, "I'm fine." She stopped. Damon immediately regretted the tone. "Sorry." Sloane looked at him for a moment. Then she smiled. "It's okay. No argument. No question. No challenge." For some reason, the easy forgiveness felt empty. Damon left the office an hour later and drove north without deciding where he was going. By the time he recognized the neighborhood, he was already near Rachel's building. He almost turned around. Instead, he parked. He sat in the car for several minutes, then called Tessa. She answered on the 4th ring. "What happened?" Damon frowned. "Why does something have to happen?" "Because you don't call at 11 in the morning unless it's about the baby or the company." "It's about the company." Silence. Then Tessa said, "What happened? Can we talk?" "We're talking." "Not on the phone." Another pause. "I'm at Rachel's, I know." Her voice changed. "You're outside?" "Yes, Damon. I'm not coming up." she exhaled. I'll come down. Tessa appeared 10 minutes later wearing a loose white blouse over black pants, her hair tied back. She was further along now. Damon noticed that first. Then he noticed how different she looked without him. Not happier exactly. Calmer. That hurt. She stopped several feet from the car. Damon got out. You look good. Tessa's expression stayed neutral. What happened? He nodded toward a small coffee shop across the street. Can we sit? She considered it. Then crossed the street with him. They chose a table near the back. Tessa ordered tea. Damon ordered coffee and forgot about it the second it arrived. She waited. He looked at her. Denver's behind. How far? Almost 6 weeks. Tessa didn't react. Atlanta? I delayed final land approval 30 days. That isn't enough. The answer came immediately. Damon gave a humorless laugh. You didn't even ask for the numbers. I don't need every number to know 30 days doesn't solve a timing problem. He looked at her. Tessa lifted her tea. You came here because you already know that. Damon's voice lowered. Did you know this was going to happen? Tessa set the cup down. I knew it could. Then why didn't you stop me? Her face changed, not anger at first. Disbelief. Stop you? You knew the risk. I told you the risk. You could have pushed harder. Tessa stared at him. Because every time I disagreed with you, you treated me like I was against you. Damon looked away. People spoke quietly around them. A milk steamer hissed behind the counter. Tessa continued. I showed you projections. Evan showed you projections. You said we were afraid. I thought you were. You thought caution meant weakness. That's not fair. No? Damon rubbed his thumb against the edge of his coffee cup. Tessa looked at him. You ask why I didn't stop you. Damon, I'm your wife, or I was. I wasn't your parent. He looked up. You were my partner. Partners get hurt. I heard you. No. You waited for me to stop talking. The words landed harder than he expected. Damon looked toward the window. Across the street, a woman pushed a stroller beneath the shade of a palm tree. He remembered buying the crib with Tessa. He remembered arguing about the color. He remembered thinking they had years ahead of them to fix whatever had gone wrong. Now even ordinary memories felt borrowed. Tessa said, What do you want from me? Damon looked at her. I don't know. That's a problem. I miss talking to you. Her expression softened slightly. About business? About everything. Tessa did not answer. Damon leaned forward. Sloane agrees with everything I say. Tessa almost smiles. You sound disappointed. I thought it would feel better. That might be the first honest thing you've said about her. He looked at her. Tessa's eyes stayed on the table. Damon said, I'm not saying that to hurt you. I know. She makes things easy. And you want it easy. I thought I did. Tessa looked at him now. Damon continued. You never made me feel comfortable when I was wrong. No, you could have occasionally. A smile touched her mouth. That sounds terrible. I know. For a few seconds, they almost felt like themselves again. Then Damon's phone vibrated on the table. Sloane's name appeared on the screen. Tessa saw it. The small moment vanished. Damon turned the phone over. Tessa looked down at her tea. You should answer. No. She's your girlfriend. Damon's jaw tightened. I don't know what she is. That's between you and her. Tessa. What? I'm trying. To do what? He had no good answer. Tessa sighed. We can talk about the company. We can talk about the baby. I'm not doing this halfway marriage thing where you come here when Sloane stops being comforting. That's not why I came. Then why did you? Damon looked at her. Because he missed her. Because the house felt wrong. Because Grace was growing inside a life he no longer shared. Because Sloane had given him everything he claimed he wanted, and it had shown him how little he understood what Tessa had given him. He said none of that well. Instead, he reached for his phone. Then explain this. Tessa frowned. Damon opened the photograph Sloane had sent him weeks earlier. He turned the screen toward her. Tessa looked at it. Her face changed slowly. What is this? You and Callum. I can see that. You said Evan was there. He was. He isn't in the picture. Tessa took the phone. Damon watched her study it. Her eyes narrowed. She zoomed in. Then again. What? Tessa did not answer. She moved the image sideways and enlarged the left edge. There was a narrow strip of dark fabric near her shoulder. A sleeve. Barely visible. Tessa stared at it. That's Evan. Damon frowned. You can't know that. Yes, I can. It's a jacket. It's his jacket. Tessa. He wore that same charcoal suit to the board dinner the night before. Damon leaned closer. She zoomed in farther. Near the bottom corner was a small piece of a white cuff and the silver edge of a watch. Tessa looked at him. This was cropped. Damon's expression hardened. No, yes, you don't know that. I know there were 3 people at that table. Maybe he got up. He didn't. You remember every second? It was a 2-hour meeting about your company. Damon reached for the phone. Tessa kept it. Where did you get this? He hesitated. Her eyes lifted. Damon. It was online. That isn't what I asked. I saw it online. Where? He looked away. Tessa's voice became quieter. Who sent it to you? Damon said nothing. That was enough. Tessa handed the phone back. Sloane. He looked at her. She found it. And sent you this version. Yes. Tessa leaned back. Her eyes were no longer angry. They were focused. That expression used to make Damon nervous in meetings because it meant she had found something he had missed. He felt the same thing now. When did she send it? 3 weeks before the opening. Was this the only thing she showed you? Damon paused. Tessa noticed. What else? Nothing. You're lying. I'm not lying. You hesitated. He looked at her. She waited. Damon exhaled. There was a message. What message? He unlocked his phone again and searched. I don't have the original. Original what? Sloane sent me a screenshot. Tessa's expression changed. A screenshot of my messages? No. Callum's. How would she have that? She said someone sent it to her. Who? I don't know. Tessa's eyes narrowed. You never asked? That's becoming a theme. Damon ignored the comment and found the image. He placed the phone on the table. Tessa looked. The screenshot showed Callum's name at the top. Below it was one sentence. I wish things had been different between us. Tessa stared at it. Damon watched her carefully. There. She said nothing. Tell me that doesn't look personal. Tessa picked up the phone. Her brow furrowed. Then she looked at Damon. When did Sloane give you this? Around the same time. And you believed it? What was I supposed to think? You were supposed to ask me. I did eventually. After kissing her beside a pool. Damon looked down. Tessa returned her attention to the screenshot. Something about her expression unsettled him. What? She looked at him slowly. That isn't the whole message. Damon's eyes narrowed. What do you mean? I mean, Callum did send me that sentence. His face hardened. Tessa continued before he could interrupt. But it didn't end there. Damon stared at her. What came after it? Tessa looked back at the screenshot. I remember the conversation, then tell me. She shook her head. No. His frustration rose. Tessa, I'm not going to reconstruct a message from memory while you sit there waiting to decide whether you believe me. You just said there was more. There was. Then what? I still have the conversation. Damon stopped. Tessa reached for her purse. She took out her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen. Then she stopped. Damon watched her. What? Tessa looked at him. I'm going to check it myself now? Yes. She opened her messages. Damon leaned slightly closer. Tessa moved the phone away. He frowned. You're hiding it again. No. I'm setting a boundary. I'm sitting right here, and I'm allowed to read my own messages without you over my shoulder. Damon leaned back. Tessa scrolled. Weeks of conversations. Most of them were short. Numbers. Meeting times. Links to industry reports. Nothing romantic. Then she found it. Her eyes moved over the screen. She became very still. Damon noticed. What does it say? Tessa looked up. You really never saw the rest. There was no rest in the screenshot. Her eyes shifted back toward his phone, the cropped photograph, the cut message. Both came from Sloane. Tessa felt the shape of something beginning to form. Not proof yet. A pattern. Damon leaned forward. Tessa, what does the message say? She locked her phone. His face tightened. You're kidding. No. Why won't you show me? Because I need to understand what I'm looking at first. What is there to understand? A lot, apparently. She stood. Damon rose, too. Tessa. She picked up her purse. Who originally posted the restaurant picture? I don't know. You said it was online. Yes. Find it. Why? Because I want to see the original. Damon stared at her. You think Sloane cropped it. I think Evan was sitting beside me. That doesn't mean she did anything. I didn't say it did. Tessa looked at his phone. But somebody removed him. Damon's voice hardened. Maybe the person who posted it cropped it. Maybe. And the message? Maybe somebody cut that too. Damon shook his head. You're reaching, am I? Yes. Tessa studied him. Damon was defensive again. She knew why. If the photograph and message were misleading, then the story he had used to soften his guilt started falling apart. She did not say that, not yet. Instead, Tessa said, I'm going to call Evan. Damon frowned. For what? To ask if he remembers the picture. You don't need to turn this into an investigation. Tessa almost laughed. You built half your justification for cheating around 2 screenshots, and now you don't want questions? I never said they justified cheating. You acted like they did. I admitted I was wrong. Then you shouldn't be afraid of the truth. Damon stared at her. She stepped away from the table. He caught up near the door. Tessa. She stopped. His voice softened. What happens if you're right? She turned. About what? If the picture was cropped? Tessa looked at him for several seconds. I don't know. And if Sloane lied? I don't know that she did. But if she did, Tessa's face remained calm. It still doesn't change what you did. Damon looked away. There it was again. The answer he hated because it gave him nowhere to hide. Tessa opened the door. He said, "Can I see you after you talk to Evan?" She looked back, if there's something worth talking about. Then she left. Damon remained inside the coffee shop. His phone buzzed. Sloane again. He stared at her name. This time he did not answer. Across the street, Tessa entered Rachel's building and called Evan before the elevator reached the third floor. He answered almost immediately. Everything okay? I need you to remember something. That sounds ominous. The lunch with Callum. Evan went quiet. The one in Brickell. You were there. Yes. Do you remember someone taking a picture? No. Tessa stepped into the elevator. Did you leave the table at any point? For the bathroom, maybe. Before or after we discussed Denver? Tessa, that was weeks ago. I know. Why? Damon has a photo. Evan paused. What photo? Me and Callum at the table, and you're missing. Silence. Tessa watched the elevator numbers rise. Evan said, I'm definitely not missing. I know, I was sitting beside you. I know. Another pause. Then Evan said, wait, what? I think I saw that post. Tessa's heartbeat quickened. When? A while ago. Someone tagged Callum. Do you still have it? Maybe. Find it. Tessa, please. He heard something in her voice. All right. The elevator doors opened. Rachel was standing in the hallway holding grocery bags. She saw Tessa's face. What happened? Tessa raised one finger. Evan was still speaking. I'll search. Call me as soon as you find it. I will. Tessa ended the call. Rachel followed her inside. What happened? Tessa set down her purse. Damon showed me the picture. The Callum picture? Yes. And? Evan was cropped out. Rachel stopped. Cropped out by who? I don't know. That sounds like you know. I don't. Rachel put the groceries on the counter. Tessa continued, and there was a message. What message from Callum? Rachel waited. Tessa repeated the line. I wish things had been different between us. Rachel's eyebrows rose. That sounds terrible. It does. But Tessa took out her phone. She opened the full conversation. Then she handed it to Rachel. Rachel read the complete message. Her expression changed. Oh, Tessa nodded. The entire message was still there. I wish things had been different between us. You should never have had to choose between keeping your marriage peaceful and being heard. Rachel looked up. That is very different. Yes. Who cut it? Tessa. She shook her head. I don't know. But she knew who had given Damon both pieces. Sloane. Rachel placed the phone on the counter. What are you going to do? Tessa stared at the screen. For weeks, Damon had looked at her as if she were hiding an affair. For weeks, he had been feeding his guilt with a story that made his betrayal easier to carry. Maybe Sloane had helped build that story. Maybe somebody else had. Tessa was not going to guess. She had spent too much of her marriage reacting to Damon's assumptions. She would not replace his assumptions with her own. I'm going to find out what actually happened. Her phone rang. Evan, Tessa answered. That was fast. I found the post. Her fingers tightened around the phone, and Evan's voice became serious. There are 3 people in the original picture. Tessa closed her eyes. Rachel watched her. Evan continued, you, Callum, me. Tessa opened her eyes again. Send it. A second later, the image arrived up. Tessa opened it. There they were, all 3 of them. Evan beside her, a folder open on the table, Callum holding a printed report. A business meeting so ordinary it was almost boring. Tessa stared at the photograph, then at the cropped version Damon had sent her after she asked. The difference was deliberate. She did not yet know who had done it. But for the first time since the pool party, Tessa knew Damon's jealousy had not grown entirely from what he had seen. Someone had helped him see what they wanted him to see. And the one person who had handed him both pieces was the woman now sleeping in Tessa's old house.